We just found the beaver chew down there, some fresh chips, and we're gonna send these to Cochise College. We're working with Steve Markley.
And then some of us start wondering, well, what's going on with those beavers? And nobody kind of knew what was going on with the beaver.
Picture a desert river that once teemed with life, now reduced to a dry scar across barren land. The solution to reviving it? Not millions of dollars in infrastructure, not advanced technology, just 15 rodents with an obsession for building. Sounds absurd, right? Yet what happened next in the Arizona desert is one of the most remarkable ecological comeback stories you've never heard of. But before we get to the miraculous resurrection, we need to talk about one of North America's most devastating ecological disasters, one that most history books conveniently skip over. Everyone knows about the gold rush, but few realize that an even more destructive rush happened first. The fur rush of the 19th century didn't just reshape the American West, it nearly erased an entire species and fundamentally altered the continent's waterways forever. Rewind a few centuries, and North America was beaver paradise. These industrious creatures populated every suitable waterway from the frozen reaches of Alaska down to the steamy Gulf of Mexico. They thrived everywhere, constructing their iconic dams and engineering entire ecosystems.
They migrated south. From Arizona, they migrated south into Sonora on the San Pedro.
Then European settlers arrived with an insatiable appetite for beaver fur, which was fashionable and incredibly valuable. But it wasn't just the fur. Beavers also produced castoreum, an oily secretion that became a prized ingredient in perfumes, medicines, and even some foods. The slaughter was systematic and relentless. Historical records suggest that in New Netherland alone, an East Coast colony, hunters killed approximately 80,000 beavers annually for at least 5 consecutive years. Think about that number. That's nearly 250,000 beavers from one region in just 5 years. Hunters didn't practice restraint. They killed every beaver they encountered simply because they could. As beaver populations collapsed on the East Coast, the hunters pushed westward. This wasn't a gentle expansion. It was an aggressive campaign that cleared wildlife from Missouri to California, from Canada to Mexico. The beaver population was driven to the brink of extinction. While the southeastern states saw some trapping continue, it was the southwestern regions that faced the most catastrophic impact. And nowhere was this more devastating than along the San Pedro River. The San Pedro River flows through what is now Arizona, cutting through the harsh Sonoran desert where rainfall is scarce and temperatures are punishing. Yet before human interference, this river was something extraordinary, a perennial waterway that served as a lush green oasis in an otherwise unforgiving landscape. Wildlife flourished there, and beavers were so abundant that hunters who first arrived gave it an unofficial name, Beaver River. The fur trade exploded along the San Pedro, and the beaver population paid the ultimate price. But the final blow came from an unexpected source. In the 1920s, soldiers stationed at Fort Huachuca systematically destroyed beaver dams with dynamite. Their reasoning? They blamed the slow-moving ponds for harboring mosquitoes. Whether this accusation was justified or not, the result was final. The remaining beaver strongholds were obliterated. The consequences rippled through the entire ecosystem. Without beaver dams to slow the water and create wetlands, the river transformed dramatically. The lush vegetation vanished.
And suddenly, that peak went down.
Biodiversity plummeted. By the mid-20th century, the San Pedro only flowed during the rainy season. For the rest of the year, it was just another dry desert channel. The Beaver River lost all connection to its name and its former glory. Decades passed. People adapted to this diminished landscape, accepting it as the new normal. But then, in the late 1990s, an audacious idea emerged. What if we could bring the river back by bringing back the beavers? Between 1999 and 2002, 15 beavers were carefully reintroduced to a stretch of the San Pedro River in Cochise County. 8 arrived first in 1999, followed by 5 more in 2000, and finally 2 in 2002. Then researchers waited to see if these animals could resurrect a dead river. The results were nothing short of astonishing. By 2006, just 4 years after the final beavers were released, researchers counted more than 30 dams scattered throughout the reintroduction zone. The beavers hadn't just survived, they'd thrived. Population estimates suggested around 100 beavers now called the San Pedro home, constructing an average of 30 new dams every year. Some beavers even ventured beyond expectations. Several crossed south into Mexico, building dams on the river's uppermost reaches. One particularly adventurous beaver earned the nickname the surfing beaver after traveling all the way to the Gila River at the San Pedro's northern terminus. By 2010, the population was definitively confirmed to exceed 100 animals. But why did this matter? Why were 100 rodents building mud and stick dams so important? The answer lies in understanding what beavers actually do. They're not just building homes, they're engineering entire ecosystems. When beavers construct dams, they slow water flow, which reduces erosion and prevents flooding. They create wetlands that support incredible biodiversity. Their ponds recharge groundwater and naturally filter pollutants. Scientists classify beavers as a keystone species, organisms that have a disproportionately positive impact on their environment relative to their numbers. Entire ecosystems depend on them. The San Pedro River began transforming back toward its pre-destruction state. New habitats emerged that hadn't existed for decades. Wildlife populations that had dwindled due to unsuitable conditions began recovering. Scientists analyzed 13 different bird species and discovered something remarkable. In areas where beavers lived, bird populations were 50% higher than in beaver-free zones. Endangered species particularly benefited. The willow flycatcher, a bird on the endangered list, suddenly had vastly expanded habitat thanks to the work of just 100 beavers. The yellow-billed cuckoo, listed as threatened, found perfect nesting and foraging conditions in the dense vegetation that sprouted around beaver ponds. Insect populations exploded, providing abundant food for birds and other creatures. Perhaps most critically, the beavers addressed the water problem. Before their return, the San Pedro ran dry most of the year due to high temperatures and lack of replenishment. A wildlife biologist from the Bureau of Land Management had theorized that beaver dams could hold back water, creating ponds that would recharge groundwater and provide a water source during dry seasons. The theory proved correct. The vegetation and ecosystems that had vanished were slowly returning, but of course nature doesn't make anything easy. In 2008, disaster struck when massive floods swept through the region. Before the flood, 30 dams dotted the river. Afterward, 0. Every single structure was destroyed, yet the beavers' determination proved remarkable. Within just 1 year, they had rebuilt all 30 dams. Then came 2019, and a disturbing discovery. Beaver activity had decreased dramatically. Observers found no beaver lodges and estimated only 2 or 3 animals remained. The population had collapsed, but why? Researchers proposed several theories. Mountain lions, common predators in Arizona, might have decimated the beaver population. While concerning this seemed unlikely, beavers had coexisted with predators for millennia. A darker possibility emerged: illegal hunting by humans. If true, this would be history repeating itself in the cruelest way. Fortunately, the Watershed Management Group began monitoring the area intensively. Within 2 years, the beaver population recovered from 13 to 17 animals. However, by 2024, numbers had dropped again to between 11 and 14 beavers. The fluctuations pointed to another culprit: cattle. Cows disturb beaver breeding habitats, trample young plants, and damage riverbanks. Despite fences erected by the Bureau of Land Management to protect the environment, cattle still access the river through gaps in the barriers. It remains an ongoing challenge. Yet despite these setbacks, the San Pedro story demonstrates something profound. Nature can heal if given the right tools. And beavers aren't just helping in Arizona. Along the heavily polluted Chesapeake Bay on the East Coast, beaver restoration is becoming crucial to environmental recovery. The Chesapeake Bay watershed is one of America's most populated regions, suffering from agriculture, industry, and wastewater treatment pollution. Rivers flowing into the bay carry excessive nitrogen and phosphorus, creating algae blooms that block sunlight and create dead zones where aquatic life cannot survive. While oyster restoration helps, beavers offer something unique. In one Rhode Island watershed, beaver populations grew from 0 to 92 over 30 years. Their dams create wetlands that improve water quality dramatically. Researchers discovered that while small beaver ponds remove only 5% of nitrogen from water, larger ponds remove up to 45%. The organic material trapped in beaver ponds catches nitrates and converts them to gas that simply evaporates. Beyond water purification, beaver presence motivates communities to plant and protect trees, which the beavers need for construction materials. It creates a positive feedback loop of environmental restoration. The biggest obstacle isn't ecological, it's human perception. Many landowners view beavers as pests that destroy valuable trees, leading to actions that harm these ecological engineers. Changing that mindset is crucial. These furry architects are doing what millions of dollars in human engineering often cannot: restoring degraded landscapes naturally, efficiently, and sustainably. They're not just fixing rivers, they're demonstrating that sometimes the best solutions to our environmental crises aren't technological innovations, but simply letting nature do what it does best. The question isn't whether beavers can save ecosystems, they've already proven they can. The question is whether we're willing to let them,